You are looking live at the home studio. Jason Martinez with you. It is another brand new episode 43 of BetParx Presents Stick to Hockey Live. Bill Meltzer, Anthony Sanfilippo going to join us in just a moment. Big episode today. It's officially the NHL offseason for the Flyers, so we got a ton to get into, and they will join us in just a moment. Let me tell you about BetParx real quick, though. The all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app. It is now live. This is a great time. You got the Cup playoffs. You've got NBA playoffs, you've got baseball, you've got PGA, you've got tennis, F1. You can bet on all of it. And you got to take it from me, the new BetParx app, everything you've wanted in a mobile casino and sports book, and it's right in your pocket. It's the size of your phone. If you're on the road, easy to pull over, get a couple bets in, get a little action. It's easy to sign up, easy to use, easy to navigate, fun to use, and faster to win than ever before. And right now, all BetParx, new and existing users can use the promo code Jason750 and get a risk-free bet up to $750. Again, new and existing users, Jason750. That's the promo code. A risk-free bet up to $750. Terms and conditions do apply. So make sure you download the app. Check it out. If you just need a day or two to peruse it, go ahead. We'll have Tone on Thursday for Tone's Takes. Download the new BetParx app today. Must be 21 or over. Present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's bring in the guest on this episode of BetParx Presents Stick to Hockey Live from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. It is Bill Meltzer. And from CrossingBroad.com and the Snow the Goalie podcast, it is Anthony Sanfilippo. What's going on, boys?
Hey, Jason. Hey, Ant. Jason, feels like I just spoke with you yesterday.
We did.
You know what I'm noticing, guys? We're getting old. All three of us have to sit here wearing a pair of glasses as we're watching. Two of us are follically challenged. Bill's got a little gray going. Like, go back about 15 years. We were all like young and spry and really,
Yeah, really.
I don't know what happened. Well, where did time go?
Father time always wins. You know?
Yeah, we're not going to win that fight. Like, I feel like 5 years ago, I could see through walls. Now I can't see my phone in front of me. It's insane.
You know what killed me? Just starting with readers.
That's what I did, yeah.
Like I just started, but these readers will help me with just looking at the computer screen all day long. That way I don't start squinting. But now when I don't have them on, I need them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the assistance of just a simple little grade level 1 reader has thrown my eyesight to the point where now I have to rely on glasses.
Well, I went to the eye doctor and he said, you got to get rid of those readers. They're doing you worse than they're helping you. And so I went to the prescription ones and like, I can wear these, I can see far with them and everything. They're like that progressive lens, but yeah, you're right. The point remains, we're getting old. I'm fucking 50. Can you believe that shit?
I know, it's good.
I called my doctor today. I got to get my back looked at. I couldn't put on my right sock today because my back hurts.
Isn't it crazy too that little things that never kicked your ass before?
Yep.
Like all of a sudden, like you slept a little funny. Your side hurts. It's crazy.
There's a fan on you, and you wake up stiff.
Yeah. And it seems like it was like we were in our 30s the last time that the Flyers had a team that could contend for a Stanley Cup.
Because we were.
Oh, we were. I'm sorry.
The funny, it makes you appreciate guys like Chris Chelios or Jaromir Jagr, how they can still play the game at a high level at late 40s and 50s. It's insane to me. I play beer league and I'm dead for 2 days after.
Yeah.
And believe me, that's not like playing pro. So we got a lot to get to in this episode. We're going to start off with the Morgan Frost stuff, and then we're going to kind of pivot into some other things, exit day, some of those meetings, head coach and other stuff. And we're going to look at the playoff brackets as well. But let's start where we kind of left off in the last episode, because I was getting messages from Bill that, he's much higher on Frost than Anthony is. And I don't know that Ant's not high on Frost, but Ant doesn't think Frost will be here. So let me kind of do it this way. Let me give each of you kind of 40-second opening statement on Morgan Frost, and we'll kind of go from there. Let's start with you, Ant.
Yeah, and I think that you just said it right, Jay. And I don't think that I'm too far off from where Bill is as far as I do believe Morgan Frost is an NHL caliber player. I do think he's going to have a career in this league. I do think that his inconsistency over the course of time has put him into his position where the Flyers look ahead at their future and how they're going to rebuild this team. And I think that they look at him more now as an asset as opposed to as being a building block. And I think that that's kind of maybe where Bill and I are diverging. I think otherwise, other than that, I think that we kind of agree on a lot of the same things. He's been really good under Mike Yeo overall. His last 15 games, especially, I thought he was excellent once they moved him back to the middle off the wing. I thought he really played some of his best hockey as a Flyer. So I mean, I think that when you hear Bill say what he's going to say, I think you're gonna find some of it is exactly the same, and that this debate isn't exactly as crazy as a lot of people thought it was going to be. I just think, and I look at it, and what we could talk about, when we look at the future and how this team's going to be constructed. I have a harder time finding a spot for Morgan Frost on the Flyers roster in 22-23 than I think Bill does, and I think that's where we differ.
All right, good opening statement, Bill. You at the floor.
When we had actually, when you, Jason, had Craig Button on this very podcast, and without prompting, I asked the question about Morgan Frost development, and Craig said he expects him to have a career much like Danny Brière's, or it took some time for Danny. We even went through waivers for it to click. And it could be here in Philadelphia, or it could be somewhere else, but he's confident it's going to happen. The way I see it is it doesn't have to happen somewhere else. It could happen here. And when you look at, as Ant just pointed out, the quality of his play over the last really 15 games of the season, I thought he was actually pretty consistently pretty good in the later part of the season. When we asked Mike Yeo in the final day of the season, who improved process-wise, the most in your eyes, he went right to Frost, actually. And, back in January, back when he was on a line with, at the time he was with Jerry Mayhew and with Max Willman, he said, listen, if what I was worried about primarily was points, I'd have him higher in the lineup. And I'm sure he'd produce some more points. It's really more about the consistency of details, keeping his feet moving, being the first on the puck, some of the battles on the walls. I want Morgan to focus on that. Once he gains consistency in that, the points will eventually come with it. And that really is kind of how the rest of his season played out, although maybe it took a little longer than a lot of us, probably Morgan himself included, for the points to come back with it. Last thing I want to say is that when you are managing a salary cap, you need to have players that are either on or just off of entry-level deals. The Flyers have a lot of money tied up in the first and second centers with Couturier and Hayes. So to have an inexpensive third-line center with some upside, to me, makes the most sense.
Is he ready and to be, going into camp next year, if he is here, an everyday, no doubt about it, no going back and forth NHL player as a third line center?
See, this is where I'm not sure. I think we hit a gray area with the third line center thing, right? In all honesty, because he was at his best when he was playing on lines that were offensively productive. And that's not to say your third line can't be offensively productive. It certainly can. But you really want your third line to be a little bit more than that. You want it to be more of a two-way line. You want it to be a line that can play against the other team's top line if necessary. You always try to get that second line out against, a weaker line, or give them the offensive zone starts, or start down the other end. So that way they're not having to go 200 feet. Like they're guys that are scorers, but maybe aren't your best defensive players. And I think that's where Morgan fits better. In all honesty, I think he fits better ultimately on this team as a second line center. And if you're going to sit there and say, well, you can make Kevin Hayes a third line center, you certainly can. And by that rationale, I think what Bill is saying, it certainly makes sense. Salary cap wise, you could sit there and say, yeah, you know what? We could get away with Morgan Frost as a second line center. It's so cheap because we're paying a third line center a lot more, right? And Hayes could do other things. It's not just going to be a 15-minute-a-night guy playing third line. He's going to play on power play and things like that. So he's going to get his time. But I guess my concern is this. If you're really going to go out, and we've heard so many things, again, a lot's going to come out of the news conference with Chuck tomorrow, right? If you're going to really go out and pursue top-end talent, which they insist they're going to do, and not just one player, maybe two, I have to think one of them is going to be a center. I have to think that. You know, I know that there's a lot of money tied up in the middle, but the middle is where the bread's buttered. I mean, yeah, maybe you get one scoring winger, but you really need, if you're going to bring in two players, you're going to bring in a center. And if that's the case, do you sit there and say, well, we've tried Morgan on the wing, we think he can work on the wing, or do, you know, maybe give that another go, or do you sit there and say maybe Morgan plus somebody else can get us that center? Maybe that, you know, maybe we're trading an asset that's got some NHL ability, some NHL talent that another team thinks that they can get a lot out of, and it'll be a good hockey trade. And that's not to say that the Flyers are giving up on him. It's just saying, hey, you know what? Sometimes you got to part with something that you like in order to get something that you want. Sure. And I think that that's kind of where my mindset is on this, because I don't necessarily think he's a third line guy for a full season. I think he's more of a second line guy ultimately. Right. But so, if you're gonna bring in a big name, he might be the guy that has to go to get you that big name.
So you use him as a commodity, or to get a known commodity, and there's still a little bit of unknown elements to Morgan's commodity.
Correct.
I'm
not saying him alone. He might have to be packaged with someone.
Exactly. If you're getting high-end talent,
Morgan alone is not going to get you a superstar center. All right,
and Bill,
superstar winger.
One of the reasons why Morgan has value in that scenario too is because, just like you said, there's not a lot of money attached to him, and that's an attraction for a lot of NHL teams right now in this pseudo flat cap world.
And that's the thing. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was just saying, but when you look at what the team's uncertainties and their needs are, and I am hopeful. My fingers are crossed that Ryan Ellis's issues are, you know, dealt with over the summer. He gets through next season healthy. I am very worried about another season on the blue line like they had this year. What do you have if Ellis goes down, right? Mm-hmm. Particularly, you know, now things may play out where Travis Sanheim does sign an extension this summer, and that's one less thing you have to worry about. You cross that off the list, right? But as of now, he's a year away from being unrestricted. You don't know what you have. You know, you don't know how healthy Ryan Ellis is going to be. Cam York is still a very young player, and did show some promise. Did show some really good moments. Actually, probably I would argue looked better in the NHL than he did in the AHL this year.
Yeah, right.
The third pair was a big problem this year, and that really all started with Ellis's injury, and then Ron having to move up. Ron's not here anymore. So when I look at the team's issues, and I say if you address two things, you have to get a scoring winger, and you have to even if it's only through depth, add another piece to the blue lines you can count on. And it would be great to have a top quality center. Don't get me wrong. If you could add a Mark Scheifele to name one of the guys who's been out there in trade rumors, then you're absolutely a better hockey team. But I just think for the dollars and cents of cap management, that's going to be hard to do.
Yeah, he's got 2 years left on his deal at 29
Scheifele?
Years of age.
You're talking about Scheifele?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot of term. Like I like that thought process in Scheifele in the term. I think he's making 6.1.
Yeah,
and I look at that and I go, for what I'm getting and I'm not getting a long commitment here. I'm not going to the guy's 34, but I do like what he brings to the table as an addition to, then look at you up the middle. You got Couturier, Scheifele, both from that same draft, and then Hayes. So you're pretty set up the middle. And then if you don't have to depart with Frost there, you could put Frost on the wing on one of those lines in the scoring situation.
Well, that's the question. I mean, are you comfortable with Morgan Frost as a winger? I think they're loaded on the right side. I mean, we one of the things one of the things we've talked about in the past, and Bill, I think we've even talked about it off air, is if you're going to be making these kinds of moves in the offseason, you're going to have to get rid of some salary, right? So does a Travis Konecny get moved in this regard? If you're going to go out and get a Scheifele at $6.1 million, do you move a Konecny, right, in that regard, to kind of balance out that money going in and out a little bit? And if that's the case, does Morgan work on the wing? Like, I don't know if I didn't particularly personally like him on the wing. It didn't sound like he particularly liked playing on the wing. I mean, he tried to say the right things, but you could kind of tell by his expressions and his body language that he preferred to be a center. Right. So that's why I'm saying I don't know where the fit is for him if you're going to go out and get that top end caliber player.
I mean, and honestly though, I think Morgan's turnaround, at least offensively, started when he was on the wing with Giroux and Konecny. The last couple games before Giroux was traded. I think it was a big boost for his confidence. I thought that Jason was sitting next to me in the press box that night, the game against Montreal. I was like, there was a particular play where he faked the dump in and then made a little back pass to Konechny for a scoring chance. Like those were the things that when Morgan was playing very safe, he wasn't even trying those kind of things. It was almost like that was the beginning of his confidence coming back. When he had the big World Junior Championship, it's World Juniors, but still, he was on wing, and he could adapt to it. Honestly, they've invested a lot of time and a time and effort in picking up his two-way game as a winger, as a center rather, and he has improved significantly in the two-way game to where he is, I think, a much more viable center. But I think if you had to move him to a wing, he could adapt and be fine at doing that. And I mean, he's just one of those guys, right? The issue of whether Cam York is comfortable playing the right side, if you asked, he sure seems to prefer the left, right? And it came up with Farabee. Well, if you're asked to play center, he's going, well, in a pinch, I could do it, but he prefers being in left wing. So it's I think that I think of the three guys, the one who might adapt the fastest would be Frost, because he has played some wing before.
That's fair.
Well, let's talk about this, because all of those questions are kind of moot until they make some acquisitions. So how do we feel? How do you feel that high-end talent was the term that Chuck and Danny Briere both used, and that they'll be hunting for this offseason? And to me, I can't go in. If I'm Chuck, I get a message out to other general managers that I'm not desperate, and I'm not going to act in desperation to try and put my team in the playoffs next year, because that's when you get in trouble. Mm-hmm. But if there's a good deal that's out there, a hockey trade or a signing or some way to move money, hey, I'll look at it, but I'm not desperate. I'm not acting out of desperation. How confident are you that they're going to be able to add significant talent to this roster next year?
I think they have to.
How?
I think they have to. I think they have to find a way to add a big name player. They just have to. We've gone so long with not having that scoring that player who can score, right? We've always had Giroux, all right, but we've not had, how long has it been since we've had a goal scorer? Jeff Carter, I guess, was probably the last legit goal scorer that this team had, right? I mean, so you're going almost a decade now without one. And I know you got to look at guys like Tippett and say, maybe. And you see Tyson Forster coming, and you go, yeah, that shot will play at this level, right? Maybe he'll be those guys. Well, he'll be one of those guys. But don't rely on the maybe. Go get it. And then if you have those guys develop, great. Now you have a plethora of it. And now you have a lot more options, right? But I think you have to go get that player. I don't care what it takes. You have to get that player. Do they have to be desperate? No. Do you have to make a bad deal just to say, well, we had to get that guy? No, you don't have to go that far. I think that there is a middle ground to it, but I do think that there's going to be players available. I mean, I know. Look, your situation that you put out, Jay, I think is a little pie in the sky, but I love it.
My Marner,
your Mitch Marner proposal, I love it. I mean, if it was available, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But and Toronto's a team that you got to wonder, if they get bounced in the first round, do they consider changing the way that they look, right? Instead of paying four guys $40 million and not being able to get past the first round. So then you start to wonder, well, what would that take? And I think that that's the kind of thing where you look at it and say, and I'm just throwing this out for Marner, but we could talk Scheifele, you could talk any number of players along that same ilk. Would you go Konechny, Frost, and maybe that 2024 first rounder you got for Giroux for Mitch Marner?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you would.
In a heartbeat.
Well, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So and maybe it takes a little bit more than that. Maybe you have to throw in another draft pick or maybe another prospect, whatever.
Protected 2023 pick.
Yeah, whatever it takes, right? So you do something like that, you will do it because it's such a big enough move to draw attention to the team that we're not kidding.
Yeah.
We're going out and we're going to get that top end player. And that's what you do.
And still a young one at that.
And a young one at that, right?
Yeah. So, and that's a big part of it too, because if you're going out and you're clearing out cap space, and let's say that Johnny Gaudreau doesn't resign, with Calgary. Then that's an unrestricted free agent move, and you're just opening cap space, right?
Right.
But then it still is a very long-term commitment, you're getting a superstar player. You're also, and I'll just play through the Gaudreau scenario, for a second. Let's say you get him $10 million cap hit, 7-year contract. It's going to take something big, so something top of the line to get him. Well, then you're still remaking your roster because, to have Gaudreau and Atkinson and potentially a guy like Bobby Brink, and that's a very small forward group, right? You're gonna need to balance that off a little bit. So whatever way you're looking, you're going to need some roster reshaping, is what I'm getting at. So yeah, if you can land that real, first line talent guy, and it takes multiple pieces, young players, some established guys, even a protected 2023 first round, to get a guy who will be on your first line and play to an elite caliber, you have to do it. If it's there, you do it. I agree with both of you guys on that.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you look at, we got to see if Toronto gets bounced in the first round to play that scenario out. We got to see if Gaudreau doesn't re-sign in Calgary, and they've really got their back against the wall with Gaudreau being up and Tkachuk being up on his RFA deal, where he made $7 million. What's the qualifying offer there, right? For a guy like Tkachuk, who do they want to keep? Do they want to keep Gaudreau or Tkachuk? Or are they going to try and keep both? That's really difficult if you're in Calgary situations. Why I love them in the playoffs this year too. But how far are you willing to go this offseason? And did the play of any of the young players, kind of make them slow their roll in any way, Ant, with how aggressive they're going to be this offseason?
Well, I think that's something that you could look at positively, right? And I think Bill will agree on this, is that these guys came in and they didn't look lost at all. Noah Cates comes in and plays so well that you have to think right now, barring some kind of collapse over the summer, that he's got a roster spot next year on your bottom six. And that was probably something that we probably thought, all right, Noah Cates is going to get his trial, but then he's going to go play in the AHL next year, and he'll eventually get called up. No, I think he's got a roster spot.
I agree.
Right? And I think while I think Brink and Adard will start with the Phantoms, I think that they showed well enough that they're not that far away. Yeah. That they only need somewhere between 25 and 40 games, maybe at the AHL level. Normally, you would need that full season coming out of college. You need that 80-game season, and then you can come back. I think these two guys are guys that maybe only need half season, maybe even a little bit less, and then they can come back. So I do think that those things maybe made the Flyers think a little bit differently about how this is going to take place. That maybe we do have some kids here that can play at this level, and they can play sooner than maybe we thought. So I think that's the one positive that you take out of it. Now, are they going to come in and be saviors of this team? And you sit there and say, well, we don't need to go get that superstar because we got these guys coming. No, that's where I think that's where we had the Hextall mistake, right? The Hextall mistake was we relied way too much on the young kids being better than we think they are, and didn't go out and get the supplemental pieces that we needed to kind of make them come along at the speed that they needed to come along at. So I think that that's where you need to be aggressive after a big name player, but at the same time, recognize which of these young kids that you think you can keep in your lineup or are close enough to get to your lineup within next season. And then, you know what? Maybe you're good enough within 2 years. I think that's why I think that turnaround can happen sooner rather than later. But I also don't think that it's a 1 year fix. I also don't think it's something that you should blow up and make it a 5 to 7 year fix. I think that there is a way to do it that falls in between.
Yeah, I this is going to end up sounding redundant because I'm completely on the same page. Totally agree.
Me too.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just add to what you said, that because I do think Noah Cates is on this roster. You and I privately have discussed Oscar Lindblom. I actually think, as much as we all love Oscar, for a fourth line guy, you're looking, to save cap space here and where you can. I actually do think that makes it a situation where you might move Oscar this offseason, whereas before, I thought, okay, well, he's still in your top 9 somewhere. But actually, I think Cates came in and showed he can do everything Oscar can do, right? So that opens some possibilities there. Agree with you as Adard and as Brinko. I think a little bit of AHL time will benefit them both. They don't necessarily need a whole year. And Jason and I have discussed over on Flyers Daily that a 2-year process seems workable. 1 year seems very very optimistic to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that you need a total teardown. I really don't think the people in the fan base, the majority at least, who say they want a total teardown, understand what that really entails. If you think this year was rough, try living with 5 years of it with no guarantees of getting significantly better on the other side of it.
Exactly.
And last thing, I think the biggest mistake of the Hexy era, in retrospect, was there wasn't a true succession plan. As the Giroux got older and as Voracek got older, the Simmons got older, those guys alone in their prime were really why they were even a bubble team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as those guys got into their 30s, they're still your best players, and
that's part of the problem.
Yeah, and so there wasn't the way things evolved. There wasn't an instant obvious replacement, and and so the time maybe to make some bigger moves may have been a little early, but that's all hindsight. But everything you said, I totally agree with.
Yeah, that's the fact that Giroux at 34 this year was the best player on the team was an indictment that they didn't. Good on Giroux for playing the way he played, but you need to have a 26-year-old be the best player on your team moving forward after that whole generation of, like you said, Giroux, Simmons, and all of those guys. Ivan Provorov at the breakup day met with the media. Bill and I discussed this on Flyers Daily for today, and I was really, frankly, disturbed and disappointed in what he had to say, in the way he kind of said, "Hey, you guys have your opinion. You're all experts, blah, blah, blah." I didn't like it. I don't like it today. I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it now. What did you make of what Provorov had to say?
Here's where I like to take the minority opinion. I guess if we're sitting there, as if you want to take it personally as a member of the media and say, he's attacking us or he's coming at us saying, "No, we're writing bad stories or we're saying the wrong things about him, and this is awful. How we know better than he does, and he's just kind of being snarky about it." Well, yeah, okay, fine, you can take it that way. I get it. I understand. We work hard to do what we do and formulate the opinions we have, and if someone wants to take a shot at it publicly, yeah, you kind of get your guard up a little bit. I get it, but I also kind of understand where he's coming from. I really do, and I have a hard time really identifying where it fits. I'm not saying that he's trying to blame us for saying that he did not play well, because he did come out afterwards and said he didn't have a great season. He just refused to give himself a grade, right? That was where the sticking point was for him. But he said he didn't have a great season. And I think it's fair when you really look at what took place around him this year, that to sit there and say, all right, well, this guy's no longer any good, or he's no longer a top pair guy, which a lot of people have been saying.
Yeah, that's extreme.
I think that goes too far.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that pisses him off, in all honesty, because I think he looks at it and says, "No, I am still that guy. I can still be that guy. Give me a full season with the guy I'm supposed to be playing with on a team that's supposed to be better, that's better than what we were this year, and you'll see it. You'll see the difference." And so maybe he expressed it wrong, and that's probably the negative, right? You sit there and say, okay, you probably didn't have to go after the media to express that. You could probably said it a different way. But if I take a minute and sit back and really just kind of think about what he's trying to convey with what he's saying, I'm not that far away with him, man. I get it. I get it. I know everybody wants to jump on the hot quote, right? I mean, it's the soundbite. That's, oh, can you believe he said that? Oh, let's this is ridiculous. He's going to be the next Carson Wentz. He's going to be the next Ben Simmons. I don't know. I think that we could give the guy a second and let's think about what he's saying. And maybe he's right. Maybe he's not. Maybe we'll find out beginning of next season that he's a total jerk and he completely blew it with this, and he was right. He was, and we should have known when he said it, kind of thing. But maybe not. Maybe he can get back to being the player that we think he can be. And I'm willing to give him that chance next season.
Before we went on the air with this, I just posted a thread on Twitter, and I actually articulate a lot of the same things that you just said. I'll get to Ivan's comments in a second, but I think first of all, the narrative that he's totally partner dependent isn't really true. You know, first you have to take the team as a whole, right? And break the season down. And people forget that it wasn't until game 9 this season. So remember that Ellis went down in game 3. So it took 9 games this season before Provorov was on the ice for a single 5-on-5 goal against. That was a game in Pittsburgh on November 4th. So that was a pretty significant number of games, where he's playing alongside Justin Braun, and still playing at that same level he was playing with Ryan Ellis. A little later in the season, he had an uptick in his play where he was paired with Cam York, and obviously he's the senior partner there, and he's calling the shots. Late in the season, even he had a nice little offensive spell late in the season. I think he led the team in goals actually, in points rather in April. So. I don't think he quit on the season. I don't think he's anything less than a competitor or any of those things. I think the effort was there. The compete was there. It was an inconsistent season for him, though. And, where I think it's fair to criticize is when a team is in a situation the Flyers are in, it's almost an unfair expectation, right, on whether you're talking about Giroux or Provorov or Atkinson or Couturier had he not been hurt, to say, okay, not only do you have to come in and help stabilize things, but you have to carry the team on your back for a while. He really didn't, and he's shown in the past the promise of being able to do that. If you look at his 2017-18 season, which was his second year in the NHL, he looked right on the brink of being that kind of player. If you look in the 1920 season, right, and that's where it's Niskanen, but still, he looked right on the brink even after Niskanen moved, retired after the year, of being able to, lift whoever his partner was, whatever pairing he was on, to a higher level, to be able to, even in tough times, okay, we put this pair out and we know they're going to stabilize things. And we just hope the other guys kind of get on board and elevate their own games with it. I mean, he did it sporadically, not nearly enough. And during some of those losing stretches, particularly the 13-gamer, was maybe his toughest spell of the season, hockey-wise. I mean, he was trying to do too much. So, at times, and I felt like it was a snowball effect, right? Mm-hmm. I don't blame him for power play penalty kill. It was a team-wide problem. I have a hard time pointing a finger at any one player because it was such a collective, really, no other word but disaster, because you're 32nd in power play, and after January 1st, they were 32nd in penalty kill. They were top 1/3 before that, but still, that's more than half of the season, right? So that's I can understand the frustration, and I understand that, he may have felt that, hey, that he took a lot of it personally, right? And I get all of that. I had a problem in the being asked for self-assessment, especially by all people of Jordan Hall. And we can all sit here and say Jordan Hall might be the nicest guy you'll ever meet, and there are no loaded questions with Jordan ever.
Right. It
was a standard question. I don't even think it was directed at Jordan. I just think it was an opening to vent. I really don't think he was targeting Jordan specifically. It just kind of came out that way.
Premeditated.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit premeditated. He knew the question was coming, and that was almost the smile on his face as he, said what he wanted to say. I don't think the optics of it were great. On the same time, it's not the same token. It's not something that's the end of the world. It's not something, we can't have this player on the team. Everybody says things out of frustration and emotion sometimes, and you move on from there, right? Certainly he's not a dime a dozen player. You hear that from some fans, right? I think he's shown that he's a 20-minute night guy, any team in the league. So he's a quality player. Is it possible he gets traded this offseason? Yes. After back-to-back years like the Flyers have had, no one is or should be totally untouchable. But he still is a quality player, an important part of the team. And at the end of the day, his comments on Saturday really, ultimately is water under the bridge. Really, it's just on where the team goes from there and him being part of it, unless he's moved.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see how that ends up playing in the locker room. But, with everybody kind of disbanding right now, that has all the makings of something that just kind of simmers away. At this point. It's when you say it sometimes. If you say it in the midst of not playing well, then it's a different story. You can simmer in the locker room. But right now, everything can kind of fizzle out and everybody comes back fresh and feeling good, provided he is back. And let's get to the last thing here with the two of you guys. The head coach searches, I mean, this is a big, big thing. Chuck Fletcher's going to speak tomorrow. So is Mike Yeo. And Mike Yeo was put in a very difficult position. And I think the organization would like to keep him here in some form. What that is, as either an assistant coach with a new staff, if he's willing to do that, in development or what, I don't know. I know Mike likes being here. I've corresponded with him about it. He loves the city and he loves the organization, but those things are kind of out of his hands. As far as him being the head coach, probably not nearly enough turnaround time or turnaround in record and result is going to be able to reward him with that. So that being said, who is the next coach? We'll get some indication maybe tomorrow from Chuck Fletcher what direction they're going in and where they're leaning. I talked to Bill about this on Flyers Daily. I talked to Cam Atkinson after we were done taping an interview at Breakup Day about what he thought of John Tortorella. And his words, I effing loved playing for him. So is John Tortorella a reasonable option, Ant? Where are they going when it comes to the head coach? You going with the hot assistant? Do you go Tortorella, Paul Maurice, Claude Julien? Or where are you going here when it comes to head coach?
I think it's the big mystery of the offseason. I really do. It's the one thing where
won't linger that long, I don't think, though.
Well, it's the one thing where you kind of ask around and different names come up at different times, right? It's the one that early on we kind of when Vino was first fired, we heard the same names. We all heard the same names, right? Okay, and then of course we find out that there's some assistants out there that Chuck likes, and thought, okay, well, maybe these guys like Jimmy Montgomery, might be a guy that could end up becoming a coach here because he had success everywhere he was, but before he had his bout with alcoholism. And then now has been back and been clean and been a good assistant with the Blues. So you name like that comes to mind, especially with a young team. You think that something like that, a coach like that might make sense. But now the most recent name I heard is Maurice, right? I mean, I keep hearing that's a name that fits, kind of that veteran coach who has shown the ability to do well with teams that maybe aren't laden with top end skill players, but at the same time is still kind of chasing his own, championship, get his first championship because he hasn't won one. I don't know. I don't know if I would like Maurice. If you're asking me who I would, well, I mean, look, we would love Torts, right? I mean, come on, who wouldn't love Torts? How great would Torts be for us? It would be the best thing in the world. Like, it would be just be gold every day. Just to come out of our fingertips. But I do think that honestly, I would, if I was in Chuck's position, I would go with somebody that works with younger players better, and that's why I think that's why he likes a Montgomery kind of coach. I would be more apt to go that route, especially since you're still paying AV $10 million over the next 2 years, right? You want to be paying two coaches a lot of money.
I can't worry about that.
Well, you can't.
Get the right guy.
But here's the thing: you say you got to get the right guy. What's the average length of time that a guy coaches in the NHL?
3.5 years.
Okay, are you winning a Stanley Cup in 3.5 years?
Yeah, but Tortorella is a guy that has a 7-year stint and 2 6-year stints on his resume. One
True.
1-year stint in Vancouver where he crashed and burned.
Right.
But other than that, he burns hot but doesn't burn quick.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know. Bill, what do you think? I mean, I look at it and I say, I think that there's one more coach before you go to the big name again. I really do. I just think that there's, and if this coach develops and becomes, let's just say it's Jim Montgomery, right? And he comes in and he turns his team around and he gets his team into the playoffs year in, year out. Maybe he becomes that next generation of guy that is, that eventually becomes that veteran coach that everybody wants, right? Who knows? And if not, if it only lasts 2 to 3 years, okay, then at that point you go get the guy that you need.
The over-the-top guy that puts you over the goal line.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that, I think the guy that some of the veteran players, the Cam Atkinsons might want, and they'll want the splashy name, right? Typically that would be the case, especially in Cam's case where he played under Torts in Columbus. Would it shock me if it was Torts? It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. But on the other hand, you look at I personally have come back to Montgomery quite a bit because I know what he did in Dallas, and he had a team that really had to reshape its identity, had to rediscover a work ethic, and he wasn't there by the time they got to the Cup Finals because he had his personal issues and he had to step aside. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been fired. I mean, he was doing a really good job there. So it wasn't a question of a team underachieving. It was just a question of having personal issues he had to work out. I think he's earned another chance. He does seem to be in a much better space in his life, and I think he's done a good job wherever he's gone. I think he will get another head coaching job. So I think he would be a solid choice. Maybe certainly not a splashy name, but I think would be a solid choice. And Paul Maurice strikes me as a Chuck Fletcher kind of a coach if he has his druthers. Well organized, good, and not flashy, but a good communicator with players, straightforward, and like meticulous in preparation and those kind of things too. So I could see him being a guy they would, they'd hit it off in interviews and they'd be very comfortable working with one another. But as terms of in terms of what would be the the most fun, the most entertainment, well, you can't get more entertaining than John Tortorella. Whether it's talkative Torts or confrontational Torts, it doesn't matter. He's you never know what you're going to get sometimes.
He makes the team more relevant right away in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, that's part of it too, isn't it? I mean, whether we like it or not.
It is, but I think that the team has to be ready for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They have to be ready for it. Let me ask you this. And this is really going out on a limb. But could you see them go just have Yo do it one more year and then make the call after that? Give him, you know what I'm saying? Like
our nightmare.
Well,
I'm just saying, but if you come out and say, we're looking at 2 years from now as our real goal, but we like what Mike's done with the development of players, and we think that he'll continue to work with these young guys. And hey, we make the playoffs this year. Great. Bonus. Good for Mike. Good for the team. And who knows, down the road, maybe that works for him too. And we extend Mike and he's our coach. But if not, then you go get the big name when you have something that's a little bit more tangible.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it would play well. That would play well in the room. I mean, and I think Scott Lawton spoke about the most passionately, actually. I mean, he gave a very strong endorsement for Mike Yo staying on. And other players, too. I mean, sometimes you get that little, well, that's up to management, and that's all they're going to say because they didn't particularly like or respect the coach, right? I mean, there were a lot of endorsements, even from some of the young guys. We talked about Frost, right? He gave him a pretty strong endorsement saying Mike knew when to challenge me and knew when to pick me up. And that's, really, really kind of the way to handle young players, right? Any player, but especially a young player who's trying to develop confidence and find what works and what doesn't work for him. While I think it would play well in the room, however, I think it would go over like a lead balloon with the fan base. It would be, you're running the same guys back, same mediocrity. It would be once again putting Mike in, because I thought that Mike was put in a situation this year where he really didn't have a fair chance to succeed. Everything was in such a bad state.
Yeah.
State of disarray. Mike really didn't have a fair chance to help pick things up. He helped to try to reshape attitudes, reshape some work habits, help bring along some young players. The one loss record, actually went backwards, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it would it would play poorly in terms of saying that you're going to be aggressive and then bringing back the interim coach again. And that's nothing whatsoever against Mike, who I have all the respect in the world for. But I think it's just reality.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a good spot to wrap it up at. Guys, the Morgan Frost debate wasn't quite as frothy as I thought it was going to be, but that's good. But great stuff here as always.
Real quick, Jay, before we bounce out of here, who you guys got in the finals?
I got Calgary going out of the West. Bill, who do you got coming out of the West?
I actually had Calgary too.
That makes three.
I mean, the Avs are going to go in as the favorites, and then and then the East. I'll tell you what. Until somebody knocks off Tampa Bay, I'm not predicting against Tampa Bay. So
I'm going to go with Florida.
And
Cap going to go to the final.
I'm going Florida as well. I have Calgary, Florida, but I agree with you, Bill. I think Tampa's their toughest potential matchup.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
More so than and look, no disrespect for Carolina, who I think is a great team. No disrespect for just the season Shesterkin's had and how he could potentially steal a series against absolutely anybody with the Rangers. No disrespect to any of those teams. I think it's Tampa's the team that Florida's got to get past if they want to get over that hurdle, and that might be the toughest one for them. But I think they do it, and I think it's Calgary, Florida, and who wins?
I got Calgary winning it all. Daryl getting it done again.
So Bill, you got Calgary, Tampa.
No, Tampa, yeah.
Yeah.
So
you go three-peat, or do you go Calgary ending the Canadian drought?
Well, I just said that I can't pick against Tampa until somebody knocks them off. But I could see Calgary doing it. It's not that it's just that when you win back to back like that, and you know how to win, and you know they've been through they've been through the evolution of a champion, right? They had that year where they lost in the first, they got swept in the first round after running away with the President's Trophy. It's the same group, and until somebody proves it by doing it, I have to pick them. I have to pick them straight through to that point. But certainly Calgary's capable of going all the way.
It'll be a rematch of the 04 Cup. Ginla Le Cavalier.
Yeah. That was a great final too.
It was awesome.
I'm going to go Calgary as well. That's been my pick all. For
they're definitely getting bounced in the first round. We all picked them.
You know who they remind me of? They remind me, and it's not just because of the coach, but they remind me of the Kings.
In 12.
They just remind me of the Kings.
Totally.
The way that they play. Everything about them is the LA Kings.
Yep.
And there are guys who've bought in there that I never would have thought would have bought into Daryl Sutter.
No, it's insane. And that line of Lindholm, Gaudreau, and Tkachuk is
so
a
good.
Plus combined 178.
So good.
They're getting it done 5-on-5 at every turn. It's insane.
Yeah. So as much as I like Canada having not won the cup for this long
since '93,
as much as I get a kick out of it that they can't bring the cup home,
I
think it might end this year.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, we'll be watching tonight. It starts, and we'll get after it, boys. Thanks so much, Anthony Sanfilippo from CrossingBroad.com and Snow the Goalie podcast. Bill Meltzer from NHL.com, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. Thanks, boys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Ant.
There they are. There's the guys, and another successful edition of Bet Parks presents Stick to Hockey Live. There's just like so many questions to be answered this offseason. We could go on for hours and hours, and there's going to be a lot of time to discuss everything. But so many fascinating questions when it comes to the Flyers. Let me tell you about the all-new Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app. It is now live. Take it from me. The new Bet Parks app is everything you want in a mobile casino and sportsbook. And it's right in the palm of your hand. It's right here. This is what it is. It's the phone. This is your mobile casino and sports book. Simple to use, simple to navigate, easy to use, fun to use, and faster to win than ever before. Right now, all BetParks customers can use promo code JASON750 and get a risk-free bet up to $750. Terms and conditions do apply. That's for new and existing users. Again, JASON750. And you get that risk-free bet up to $750. So do yourself a favor. Get ready for the playoff action and get on the brand new BetParks app. You do need to be over 21 and present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Another new edition of BetParks presents Stick to Hockey Live coming up Thursday. Everybody, have a great day. Enjoy the offseason or the beginning of it. Playoffs tonight. And we'll see you Thursday on a brand new edition of BetParks presents Stick to Hockey Live. Thanks.